Interview with Elizabeth Marshman, professor at the School of Translation and Interpretation at the University of Ottawa. What first drew you to language technologies?
I have to admit that it was sort of an accident. I took a course in applied terminology because I needed a course for my master's, and that was what was available. And I was so fascinated both by the enthusiasm of the professor, who was Ingrid Meyer, the late Ingrid Meyer, at the University of Ottawa, and by the content that we were seeing, all of the possibilities that were opening up that I never even imagined, that I just wanted to continue. I wanted to learn more, and I ended up doing my master's and then my doctorate in the field. I think what really got me about the subject was that when we wanted to answer tricky linguistic questions or terminology questions, instead of having to spend hours contemplating and thinking and trying to use our own intuition, we had this wonderful tool called a corpus at our fingertips that allowed us to look up different things or look at information in different ways, or just look at so much data that it made coming up with an answer so much more sort of interesting and exciting, and I felt like suddenly I was getting my hands on the real deal, and that was super exciting, and I really wanted to continue doing that. So that's sort of what led me into the whole field.
What are your current fields of research?
I do a lot of corpus-based work, which is not surprising, based on where my interest came from. But really, I tend to like to work a lot in the areas where technologies and language and users all sort of come together. So I'm very interested in terminology and how we can use computer tools to extract information from text, and how we can use them to represent that information in a way that's usable and sort of user-friendly for different types of users. I'm really interested in translation technologies, and especially in how the human factor plays into translation technologies. So how people use them, why they use them, what might stand in the way of them using them, and particularly how we can encourage effective and comfortable and productive use of technologies in the translation field and other language fields. And finally, just recently, in a project led by Patrick Durin at the Université de Montréal, I've been participating in some studies of text messaging and how Canadians are using text messaging and what language they use, and that's been really interesting as well.
Can you tell us about the results of the study on text messaging?
We are really at sort of the beginning stages of the analysis, I have to admit right now. But we do have this marvelous corpus of over 15,000 text messages, which we were thrilled to have, and we have to thank all the people who donated those, because they really produced a wonderful resource for us. So now we're in the process of reading all of them and analyzing all of them and looking at some of the particularities or the interesting things that have come up from the messages. And certainly we're seeing a huge amount of variety, so it's been really interesting to see all of the different emoticons that pop up, or all of the different ways of expressing laughter, or even 10 different ways of saying okay or thanks, which has been really fascinating to look at and see. One of the other surprises that we've had was that some of the ideas that I think are very prevalent about text messages right now may not reflect the reality that we're seeing in the corpus right now. We sometimes think that people don't take the time necessarily to write properly in text messages, or that there is a lot of sort of laziness when you text message. But what we're seeing in the corpus is a lot of really interesting language, very varied vocabulary, very standard forms, as well as some really creative short forms and really creative expressions and ways of getting a message across. So I think that we're going to find that a lot of the particularly negative expectations we had of text messaging language are maybe not as guaranteed as we thought they might have been. So we're really excited to see all of the creativity and the variety that's coming out of those initial results, and we'll keep you posted about what the final results are.
Can you describe the collection of electronic resources in translation technologies, CERT, and how it is useful for students and professors?
Yeah, I have had the privilege of working on the collection of electronic resources in translation technologies, which is very long, so we just call it CERT, for several years with my colleagues Lynn Bowker and now Jean Quirion. And what we're trying to do basically is to put together a centralized resource that will help students and other users learn about technologies, learn how to use technologies, and really how to evaluate technologies, both their strengths and their weaknesses, to choose the tools that might be useful for them in their particular case, to learn how to use them well, and to continue to improve and develop in their use of technologies as technological developments come along. So what we've done is create a collection of step-by-step tutorials for a variety of different tools. So translation memories, term banks, machine translation tools, concordance serves, basically as much variety of tools as we can come up with that are used and useful for language professionals' everyday work. So the CERT collection, which is now integrated into LinguisTech, which is a great thing for us, makes these tutorials and sample files and additional materials available to the general public, and particularly to students, to help them sort of get a first taste of technologies and learn how to learn on their own, from their own.
What did you discover through the surveys with CERT and LinguisTech users? Were there any recurring answers?
We have had really great feedback from our surveys, and we've learned a lot of really interesting stuff, which is wonderful. One of the things that's come out is that the attitude towards technologies from most of our respondents has been really positive. There's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of will to learn about technologies. There's a recognition that they're very important in the field today. There's a recognition that they can, of course, make people employable, or they are, of course, part of translation programs today, and translator training programs. But there's also recognition that tools can be really helpful in terms of improving the quality of work, that they can help to save time, they can help with efficiency, and they can also help take over some of the tasks that are maybe among the less exciting ones in language professionals' everyday work. So there's a really positive attitude there. But we've also seen a number of obstacles come up as well. And very often those are things like not having enough time to learn technologies, not really knowing where to find information about technologies, not knowing what tools to use. So there really is a need to make that kind of information available to the general public and to students. So to help them find a tool that might be interesting, to give them access to tools, when they can use them, get them started quickly, and really put them a little bit at ease with technologies as well, which is sometimes a bit of an obstacle. And that's what makes CERT and LinguisTech such a nice partnership, I think, is that LinguisTech is really working on doing a lot of the same things, making tools available, helping people to discover things more easily, and centralizing a lot of information that can help them to make good technological choices, and to really learn about both the strengths and the challenges of tool use in a realistic and convenient way. And so we're really pleased that CERT and LinguisTech are working together towards that goal.
What types of meetings and conferences do you attend?
What I really love, actually, about the language technology field is that you very often have sort of a place in many different types of meetings or conferences or discussions. I just got back from a conference that had as a theme translation and power, and there were people there from all sorts of fields relating to language and culture. So people who look at the sociological implications of translation or cultural implications, people looking at literary translation or Bible translation, And then people looking at how technologies influence within the translation field is affecting all of the people involved, the receivers of translations, the producers of translation, and so on. So it's a really interesting way to look at all of the different perspectives that are available and see how translation technologies and language technologies fit into this big field. But at the same time, there are terrific conferences where you can get the really the new developments that are coming up in the field, specifically in translation technologies, or the cutting edge research that's going on in the really high-tech areas of technologies. So I really love to see both of those types of conferences. You can appreciate where language technologies fit into the big wide world and also see some of the really exciting new stuff that's happening. So I'm very pleased to be able to talk to people who are into computers, who are into translation, who are into society and culture, and to see all of the different ways that the different fields coexist and feed one another. So it's really a great variety.
Can you tell us about your future professional projects?
It's really hard to sort of limit it to all the things that, or to choose something among all of the things that I would love to do. Definitely, I am looking forward to continuing with my colleagues to work on CERD and to participate in the LinguisTech project. There's such great stuff going on, and I think it's really filling a need that is urgent and is important, and we're really hoping to continue to build the CERT resources and to help build LinguisTech and bring the resources to more and more people. So that's definitely a priority for us. As well, I'm really interested in learning about the different human factors in translation technology use and how we can encourage people to make good use of technologies and become comfortable with them and become excited about all the advantages that they bring, as well as being aware of some of the challenges so that they're using technologies in the best way possible. And I'm very interested as well in thinking about how we can maybe develop terminology banks to make more information available and more information useful and presented in a user-friendly way so that we'll have even stronger resources in the future. So those are just a few of the many possible ideas for upcoming research.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.